everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the Cooperatives Amendment Act. My name is Lisbon Monyela. I will be facilitating because it seems like Shani is experiencing some problems. I work with the team from Corporate Education Unit. We just hope that today's presentation, you will find it interesting and each of you will participate. So before we can look on the program, I want to provide you with some information regarding the webinar. And there are some few house rules that I want to request you to comply with. Today's webinar will be recorded, and as soon as it is edited, it will be available on the website. So you check on our homepage, there is a icon for webinars. You can find the webinars and the presentations. Unfortunately, you cannot share the presentations on your email address because it is too large. So during the presentation or the webinar, we will have the question and answer sessions, and then and after the presentation, so during the webinar, there will be the chat where you can post your questions, and then CIPC team will answer your questions. And after the presentation, there will be question and answers where we also engage with you. So the very much important thing is that please switch off your microphone and your camera so that everyone it cannot take the attention of everyone. So for now, I will hand over to Simon to continue with the presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon Fenyane. I'm from the unit Corporate Education and Voluntary Compliance within CIPC. Today we are going to talk about Cooperatives Amendment Act. So our presentation is divided into two parts. We have part A and part B. So I'll talk on part B, part A, and then Irma will continue with part B. So now, without a waste of time, as I said that we are going to talk about Cooperatives Amendment Act 2013, forms and fees. So now, the purpose and the format of the presentation, just for noting that the Cooperatives Act 2005 has been amended by the Cooperatives Amendment Act of 2013. The amended regulation for the Cooperatives Act was published on 18 April 2019. So now the purpose of this presentation is just to give you a basic information of some of the changes brought about this amendment. So our presentation will mainly deals with matters that is actually related to CIPC processes. As you know that we as CIPC, we are implementers of the Act, and then the legislation and is sitting with the Department of Small Business. The presentation is, as I said, that is divided into two parts. We have one, I'll talk about the first one, and then Irma will talk about the changes in terms of the Act. Now, firstly, if you want to transact with CIPC, firstly, you need to be. Hello. Firstly, you need to transact with CIPC. you need to create a customer code before you actually make a deposit of the prescribed fees. So now this customer code is a reference number. So now this reference number, whenever that you make a payment into a CIPC account, so you make use of the a customer code. So it is very, very, very important that when you make any payment to CIPC, that you use the correct customer code, because in case if you did not use your customer code as the reference number, obviously the funds will go into an allocated surplus account of CIPC. And that's why now we'll advise our customers, to apply for funds reallocation and so forth. So now it is very important that you make sure that you deposit, when making any deposit, that you use the correct customer code. So now the next slides. So now if you can notice, before, with the 2005 Act, so the registration fees was 250. So okay, thank you so much. And then for divisions is when you split one co-op into two cooperatives. The fee is 125. For conversions is when you convert either a cooperative to a company, is 125. And then we have another one that is transfers. Transfers is when you transfer assets and liabilities to another cooperative, is 125. So the next slide. So now with registration, you still submit. You can still submit application manually. We have that email, cooperatives@cipc.co.za, where you can submit your application. And then we also have electronic registration, where you can now register cooperatives online, and then we'll talk about that on the next slides. So for applications, for manual application, you can submit Co-op 1, which is CR1 in the 2005 Act, the Constitution, 3 certified ID copies, but you must make sure that they're not older than 3 months, as well as the name reservation. And then make sure, just for noting, that CR4 and CR8 are no longer required at registration. So now, CIPC, we have a new baby now. We now, as cooperatives, we can now register cooperatives online. So it is available. So what you need to do, you go to our website, which is www.cipc.co. Then you click on online transacting, and then you drop it down to new e-services. So that's where now you can start with the registration of cooperatives. So now what is important with this new service is that you can do both name reservation and co-op registration at the same time. Unlike when you apply manually, that you reserve a name on e-services. After name approval, then you complete the forms and you submit the forms together with the name reservation. So now the other thing that is important with these new services of co-op registration is that you use your email address as a username. So you don't use your customer code. So you can use the email address as a username. And then for payment, obviously, you will be able to use your bank card. Now, the next slides, here we are going to talk about the annual returns. And then with this information that I'm giving you on this slide is just to show you that the minister has already published this information on the 18th of April 2019. So now this information include the form, the manner, the time period for annual submission of information to CIPC, as well as the annual fees. You may remember very well that in terms of the 2005 Act, when you were submitting annual fees, it was not in the form of money. There you were submitting your financials, your CR7, or if there are any changes on CR2, that's the information that you submit in terms of the 2005. So now with the 2013 Amendment Act, obviously, you are going to submit in the form of money. Next slide. So now, this is the information about the annual fees. So if you can look at these slides. So in these slides, primary cooperatives actually divided into A1 and A2. So it also depends on the turnover of the cooperatives. So say, for example, if the cooperative, if your turnover is less than 1 million, obviously you only pay 50 Rand. But for late lodgement, obviously you pay 100 Rand. And then for A2 is 1 million, but less than 10 million. But it's just the same amount, that is 50 Rand, and late lodgement is 100 Rand. And then for category B is equals to 10 million, but less than 25 million. So for category B, obviously they will have to pay 450, and then for late lodgement it would be 600. And then category C is equals to 25 million, and then it would be 3,000. And then for late lodgement, it will be 4,000. So now C, it will be 25 million, and then 450 for annual fees, and then late lodgement, it will be 600. 25 million for a category C, and then 3,000 for annual fees, and then late lodgement it will be 4,000. So now let's look at the difference, but Emma will explain on the next slides when she talk on her presentation. Is that so now, as I said, that they are divided into A1 and A2. So now, why A2? A2 will submit Co-op 7, Co-op 8, as well as Co-op 15.1. So the information that is required when you submit the annual fees there is the balance statement and income statement. And then obviously it can be completed by the board. So obviously there you don't need an audit, you don't need an accountant to do that for you. A2 is a Co-op 7, Co-op 8, and 15.2, and then obviously this one can be it can be completed by the board. The next and then the difference there is that there's a lot of information that Elma always will actually explain. That also is information like a members report, and then income statement, cash flow statement. You can name them. You'll see them on the next slides. So there, it can also be completed by the board. So you don't need an independent reviewer, or you don't need an auditor in A2. So category B is Co-op 7, Co-op 8, Co-op 4. So now here now the difference is that it must be the cooperative must appoint an independent reviewer. For instance, an accountant, to complete all this information. So now, what is needed there? You also need to submit the following information, but it must be comply with IFRS. That's the International Financial Reporting Standard for SMMEs. So now, but if, say, for example, the co-op does not meet the requirements, obviously in that they have to complete 15.2, or they must do financial framework as determined by the co-op. The reporting framework complies with the requirements for financial statement as defined in the Act. So same applies to category C, but the only difference there is that you need to appoint an auditor to do all these things for you. You appoint an auditor, and then he must actually comply with financial reporting framework. And then if they don't comply with the International Financial Reporting Standard, obviously they'll have to submit 15.2 or any other financial framework as determined by the Act. And then we are on the tertiary and national apex, secondary, tertiary, and national apex is the same information. It's Co-op 7, Co-op 8, Co-op 4. Thereby, you only need to also appoint an auditor, and then it must also comply with the IFRS for SMMEs. So now the next slide is about the application forms. For registration, we have Co-op 1, and then Co-op 2 is relates to directors, say for amendment of directors, and then obviously 2005. You remember, if you might recall, you used the CR2. And then Co-op 3 is a notice of address and contact particulars if you want to make changes. Co-op 4 is appointment of auditors, independent reviewers, accountants. And then these are the form that you use also to remove an auditor or independent reviewer if you want to remove, and then you make use of the Co-op 4. Co-op 5 is application for name reservation or translated form or shortened form. of name. Like for sorry about that. Co-op 5 is application for name reservation or translated form or shortened name. Now we also have, they introduced a special resolution, and then for co-op 6.1 is special resolution for if you want to amend the act. 6.2 for amalgamation, you know, when you want to merge co-ops and so forth. And then 6.3 is a special resolution for division, if you want to split one co-op into two. 6.4 is convention of another juristic person. And then 6.5 is that one for transfers, like where you transfer assets and liabilities to another cooperative. 6.6 is judicial management. Obviously, it's just to when the co-op maybe is going down, you know, just to save the co-op from going down. Obviously, the judicial management will be appointed, you know, just to look at the affairs of the cooperatives and save it. Co-op 7, financial reports and statement. Co-op 8 is annual submission of information to the registrar. 9, notice of a financial year end of a cooperative. 10 is special resolution for voluntary winding up. Here is when you want to dissolve a cooperative, and then you use this form. Co-op 11, certificate of registration of cooperatives, that will obviously send to you after the registration. Co-op 12, certificate of change of name. If you want to change of name upon directive of the registrar. In this case, that the registrar, maybe you might be sharing a name or something, and then obviously the registrar will have to decide. You know, in this case, then use this form that another co-op must change their name and so forth. 14 is application for inspection of documents if you want to request certain documents. And then we have 15.1, 15.2. These are information which the one that that I was talking about when you submit your annual returns. So now we also have important information here when you communicate with CIPC or when you want to send documents to CIPC. For all cooperative queries, they must be logged via CIPC inquiry system. You go on our website and then you click on the inquiry. Obviously, for inquiry system, you will obviously be required to use your login details. That is your customer code, your password, and then from there you go to cooperative. Under the department, you have to choose a cooperative, and then that's where now you have to log the ticket, and the ticket will go to the relevant department or will be assisted. And then for applications, if you apply, obviously you use the cooperatives online at cipc.co.za. For directors changes is cooperative2 at cipc.co.za. Co-op 6 special resolution is co-op 6 at cipc.co.za. And then we also have Co-op 3, Co-op 4, CR4 changes to business address, appointment, changes of auditors, and so forth. That is Co-op. You must just check that N is AN. It's not a mistake. It's just like that. So you make use of that email address. So make sure, and then this presentation, hopefully it will be available. You know, we'll make it available if possible. So we now, I think now this brings me to the end of my presentation, and now I'll now hand it to Elma to proceed with the act. Thank you so much.
Before you proceed, Elma, there is a lady, Nokuzola Kuvisa. Please turn off your camera. It's disturbing. We will appreciate if you can switch off your camera, please. Thank you.
I think the cameras also have an effect that people use more data. So for that reason as well, we ask that people keep their cameras off. I'm going to speak about changes in terms of the Cooperative Amendments Act. And the Act was already implemented last year on the 1st of April. We've said this before, but I think it's important to note that the Cooperative Act of 2005 was amended by this Act, the Amendments Act of 2013. It actually means the 2005 Act still exists. However, there's changes to it. So we read this Amendments Act with the 2005 Act. And there were also amended regulations that was published on the 18th of April last year, which you obviously use with the amended Act. And one must understand that this presentation is to give basic information on some of the changes brought about by the amendment. In other words, we're only going to deal with some changes. We won't have the time to speak about each and everything that changed in terms of the Act, and it will be very basic information. The presentation, as Simon previously said, only deals with matters related to the CIPC processes and functions. There's obviously more to the Act than that. If we look at a few of the Acts, there's also more than is stated here, but a few of the aims for the amendment of the Act, it was to provide for distinction between the different sizes of co-ops, and that's where the categories of primary co-ops come in. In order for compliance, we wanted it to be less costly. Various different requirements for accounting, auditing, and review for annual submissions for the different categories of cooperative. This should make it easier for the smaller co-ops as well.
Sorry, Elma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're far from the computer. The sound is not clear now.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Then it made provision for a national apex co-op and to provide for, amongst others, associate members, for some new definitions. And here, some of the definitions included the one for registrar. Previously, the registrar was the head of a co-ops division. Now it is referring to the commissioner of a CIPC. The definition for social cooperatives was added, and it says that it is a cooperative that engages in the provisions of social services to its members, such as care for the elderly, children, and the sick. There are many such cooperatives. Something the co-ops that are still having a constitution registered in terms of a 1981 Act must take notice of. The constitution must be amended within 2 years of implementation of this amendments, which will mean by end of March next year. The time will be up. So please submit your new constitution. You can just replace it with a constitution that complies to the Amendments Act, and there are models on this on our website which you can use. The amended constitution must be submitted to the CIPC for registration, and non-compliance hereto will result in a cooperative being considered to be deregistered. So if you don't use it or do it, it just will mean that by end of March your co-op will be deregistered. The registrar must, once receiving the application, issue a certificate to state that the Constitution complies with the Act, or issue an instruction to specify for non-compliance the period allowed for correction thereof and the consequences of non-compliance. As far as a tertiary cooperative is concerned, there was a change. Many co-ops call themselves apexes, and in terms of this amendment, it's not allowed anymore. The tertiary cooperatives that was registered previously and had the word apex in their name had to be corrected by the registrar at the commencement of a new act, and the word apex had to be replaced with tertiary. This has been done already. In terms of section 14, there are minimum requirements that must be included in your constitution, and other things are mentioned that may be included. For instance, things that must be included in the constitution is whether the constitution does, or the cooperative does transactions with members only, in which case you can call it a closed cooperative, or whether it also does transactions with non-members, in which case it's an open co-op. In that instance, both members and non-members can do transactions with the co-op. Then the voting rights must be stipulated if it is a category C primary, a secondary, tertiary or national apex. It may make provision for members that have more than one vote, and that must be in line with section 3 of the Amendments Act, or as the Act was amended. It must have a reasonable term of office for directors, and it must state whether they can be reappointed. Under the 2005 Act, before it was amended, the maximum period was 4 years. That 4 years is not mentioned anymore, so you choose your own. If you want to make 5 years, then that is okay too. If you want to, you can add clauses about a supervisory committee, and the Constitution must then make provision for the information on the committee. And then the co-op must now provide for the manner in which an indivisible reserve may be used. Then the committee, if there's a supervisory committee, must be elected at the AGM. It must consist of members that are not directors. Members must minutes must be kept of the meetings. The committee is responsible to supervise the board and represent the interests of members. It must call a special meeting if reasonably reliable information indicates that an act or omission by the board may impact negatively on the co-op or its members. Within 7 days of this special meeting, they must inform a tribunal, which is not within CIPC, it will be a separate body, and then they must also inform the board and affected members of the decision and reasons for the decision. If this is not done, a member may report the matter to the tribunal for investigation. Members may dissolve the board at such a special meeting called by the supervisory committee. As far as reserves are concerned, in terms of Regulation 18, the indivisible reserves and other reserves must be recorded separately in the financial records of a cooperative, and reserves must only be used in a manner and for the purposes as contemplated in the Constitution. The purposes for which the indivisible reserves may be used include to sustain the co-op during periods of financial crisis, finance capital expenditure, and finance training and capacity building of a co-op. The Act now makes provision for associate members, and what that means. If you want that, you must give information about it in your constitution. They may support and benefit from the co-op. They're not normal members, so to speak. It's something that they knew, and a new thing that, because I think the previous Act did refer to it, but never said what it means. Now, this act says that membership is only valid for 12 months for such a person, but can be renewed or converted into full membership, or normal membership in other words, thereafter, subject to members' approval. Associate members can be appointed as non-executive directors, but do not have voting rights at any meetings. Non-executive directors, in other words, means the person is not really there to take decisions. They can speak in the meeting, but they can't take the decisions, which is also why they don't have voting rights at meetings. Then membership for co-ops, when you register them, have changed. You must have for primaries at least 5 natural or 2 juristic, which means a registered business of some kind, or a combination of any 5. So you can, for instance, have 3 natural and 2 juristic, if you so choose, but 5 in total. Then for secondary co-ops, you must have 2 or more operational primary co-ops. Previously, the Act just said 2 or more primary co-ops, but now one must take note of the word operational. And then tertiary co-ops must be 2 or more operational secondary co-ops. There's going to be a national apex. In order to register this, there must be 3 operational sectoral tertiary co-ops that operate nationally and 5 operational multi-sectoral tertiary co-ops that operates on a provincial, district or local level, and these co-ops must apply to form the co-op. And referring to this new term that was not previously used, that says if you register a secondary, tertiary co-op or a national apex, then it must be operational. This means a co-op that has held its annual general meeting and has submitted its annual report, audited report or independent reviewed report to the CIPC in the last financial year. Then regarding voting rights, category A and B primary co-ops will remain 1 member, 1 vote. However, category C primary, as well as all secondary, tertiary and the apex co-op, may make provision in their constitution for additional votes. It means that if you have 3 members in your cooperative, the total voting rights a member may have is a maximum of 40%. And then if you're 4 members, it can be a maximum of 30%. If you're 5 members, a maximum of 25%. And if you're more than 5 members, a maximum of 17%. Then I know Simon has referred to the categories of cooperatives. So I'm just reminding you, I'm not really going to go through all of them, but there is now a category A co-op, which is a very small primary co-op. A category A2 is a small primary. Category B is a small to medium-sized primary. And the category C is a medium to large-sized primary, as well as all secondary, tertiary co-ops and the national apex co-op. Then, to determine or the determination of the categories have some influence on certain things for your annual returns. As Simon explained, there's different forms and documents that must be submitted. But one must also understand the term annual reserve or revenue, sorry, that is mentioned in the fees, for instance. The annual revenue means it's the gross value of the economic benefits received by a cooperative as a result of its ordinary activities in a financial year. If a co-op is newly registered, in other words, there's no financial statements as yet to determine it, there must be a projected annual revenue, means an estimate of a gross value of economic benefits that are likely to be received by a newly registered co-op. As far as financial statements and record keeping is concerned, can I just, does somebody have the The sound on, please mute your sound. It's interrupting. Okay, the A1 primary, they submit financial statements that's drafted by the board for a particular financial period. And as Simon said, it includes a Co-op 15.1 form, which is the balance sheet and income statement. And all of this is done, as it says there in the first line, by the board. The category A2 primaries submit financial statements drafted by the board as well for a financial period, but this includes things like your balance sheet, your income statement, your statement of changes to membership shares, cash flow statement, notes comprising of a summary of accounting policies and other explanatory notes. Then you also have your financial statements, which obviously to do them you need accounting records, and this must include all business transactions with both members and non-members in order to calculate the patronage proportion. Accounting records and financial statements must be kept for 5 years or a longer period determined by the minister. And a co-op or director who fails to comply with record-keeping requirements is guilty of an offence. Then annual submissions to CIPC. Reports must be submitted to CIPC annually. A category A1 and 2 primary submits an annual report. The report does not have to be audited or independently reviewed. It must be signed by the directors of a co-op. The category B, as we said, may use an independent reviewer, and this person will do a report as well for every financial year. Category C, co-op primary, as well as secondary, tertiary, and the national apex must do an audited report. Then certain definitions of these reports. An annual report means a document prepared by the board of directors containing financial statements, a social report, and a management decisions report. The social report is a report by the board that assesses the social impact and ethical performance of a co-op in relation to the stated vision, mission, and goals as stated in the Constitution. And then there's a management decisions report, which is a report by the board that assesses the co-op's compliance with all legal requirements and requirements in its constitution. Then the independently reviewed report by your category B co-ops is a report by the independent reviewer that examined and evaluated the financial statements, social report, and management decisions report. And an independent reviewer that gets appointed by the co-op must be an accounting officer in terms of a Cooperatives Act, or a registered auditor, or a member in good standing in terms of Section 33 of the Auditing Professional Act. Then the audited report for category C, secondary, tertiary, and national apex is done by an auditor after he or she has examined and evaluated the financial statements, the social report, and the management decisions report. Then one must always remember all co-ops must annually have an annual general meeting. It is if it's the first AGM of a co-op, meaning after it got registered, it will have to do so within 18 months of the registration of a co-op. And subsequent AGMs must be done within 6 months of the end of the preceding financial year. So every year, within 6 months after your financial year ended, a co-op must have an annual general meeting. And the co-op must circulate the audited report, the independently reviewed report, and the annual report to its members at least 14 days before the AGM. You obviously circulate what is applicable to your category of co-op. The AGM must discuss the reports in order to take resolutions on the future conduct of the business of a co-op, and the chairperson must accept the reports and sign acceptance and implement resolutions taken. Then the board must, within 15 days, that's after having its AGM, submit a copy of a report to the CIPC, accompanied by the outcome of the AGM decisions, and then send it to CIPC for its consideration. If the AGM resolves to delay the submission to CIPC for any reason, the chairperson must notify the CIPC within the first 15 days after the AGM of a resolution and the reason for the delay and the action it will take to address the situation. And the CIPC must then consider the report and, if necessary, request further information from the co-op, refer the report to the agency to assist the co-op. The agency is referring to the Cooperative Development Agency, which is also not within CIPC, and then facilitate the co-op principal compliance. With that, I'm going to end my presentation and hand over to Shani, who will then, oh, sorry, I forgot. My colleagues are just reminding me. Shani can't do the rest of the webinar because she's got having connection problems. Lisbon will help us now. We first, I think, going to do the survey, and then he will assist us with facilitating the Q&A. Thank you, Lisbon. I'm going to try and stop sharing this document.
Thank you, Elma and Simon, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I shared the survey on the chat, so please go to the chat and then complete the survey. It helps us to know what you feel about our webinars and what other topics that you would like corporate education to have some topics. So please complete the survey, and then after survey, we are going to go for question and answer sessions, and then you can ask questions by way of raising a hand. On the MST, there's an option for a hand, and then you click that hand icon, and then I will name who has to ask the question. So does everyone got the survey? Okay, it's fine. We'll go without waste of time, we'll go for question and answers. I have Edith. You can ask your question.
I was just really wanting to hi everybody, greetings colleagues. Thank you for this very informative session. I feel as cooperatives it's very well needed. My question is, as you could see, I joined the meeting late because of connectivity problems. Will we be getting the presentations on email? That's really my question.
Yes, Edith and everyone, I'm going to send you the presentations today during the day using the email that you used to register. And if anyone doesn't get the presentation, please send the email to education@cipc.co.za, and I shared the information on the chat. The next person is Tobile. Please answer your question.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tobile from Africa Corporate Institute of South Africa. We are the organization that is working with the co-ops. My question is not much related to the presentation for today, but I've been trying to find a database for cooperatives because working with cooperatives, and sometimes we host the webinars. So I I want to check if maybe we can assist with the database for cooperatives, and if there's cooperatives that are attending this webinar, if they can share their emails with me. I don't know if that it's impossible. Hello.
Can I just
Yeah.
ask, perhaps Letty can assist us about the, about that question about like a list or register of co-ops. The problem is with sending everybody's emails to the person is just that I'm not sure everybody wants their private information shared. So I think we won't be able to do that one.
Okay, but what about the names? Not the emails, like the names of the
That's the one I want Letty to answer, because I'm not sure whether that is possible, but Letty will just have to, she's from the co-op unit. I think she must just unmute herself in case it's not her, if it's one of her colleagues who has joined us. I think she must just tell us whether Aubrey or who's the person who must answer. In case it's Aubrey, I think he's here. He can also just unmute himself and speak to us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Letty Skosana. I'm from the Cooperative Division. Regarding the data, we do not have specifically the system for cooperative data. However, you can apply for data online. There is a link under our website where you can apply and specify which information you require. However, if you struggle, you can send me an email. My email address is capital L for love, capital S for sugar, small letter KOSANA @cipc.co.za. Then I'll be able to assist you. Thank you.
Can you please repeat your email address? I didn't get it.
It's L Skosana.
Yes.
That is capital L and S. Then the rest is small.
Okay,
L Skosana @cipc.co.za.
Oh, okay, L Skosana. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mugao Ellen.
Good morning, everyone. My question is basically with regards to the members in the co-op. I saw on the presentation, there's on the primary especially, you can have a minimum of 5 members, but you can have as many as possible members in the co-op, right? Maybe that's the first question. Then the second question leading to that is the founding members. Is there a number of, like, if you are a founding member, so, or basically, can I have the difference between founding members and just normal members? What is the difference between the two? The third question, the last one, is with regards to the committee, what are the, because I've seen on the presentation, it says the directors will not necessarily make decisions, or the non-executive directors will not make decisions on the co-op. But I just want to understand, in terms of the committee, what do you have to on the co-op? Like, what is the name of the executive committee that you need to have, like chairperson, secretary, treasurer, maybe just to name a few for us. Maybe just give us like sort of a background, who should be part of the executive committee, except the minimum 2 directors that you need to have on the primary cooperative. Thank you.
Lisbon, if you want, I can answer what I can, and then like Letty or somebody else from the co-ops unit can assist. I think the first question was about what's the difference between a founding member and a normal member. Everybody that starts the co-op is a founding member. But as far as any rights the person have or obligations towards a co-op, everybody is the same. So founding is the people who complete the forms, whose details are on the forms when you apply to register a co-op. However, once a co-op is registered, anybody else who then join after registration is just a member. But as far as the obligation and rights, those things are concerned, it's exactly the same. So founding, I almost want to say it's more like it's a day you submit those things, you're a founding member, it will show the details on our registers. However, after registration, you're basically just a member like anybody else who joins after registration. There is no limit on the number of people who can be members. It all depends on whether the co-op can provide services to more than the minimum number of members who started the co-op. So you even get co-ops, not many, but some who have literally like thousands of members. So that is possible. And then I think the question what you were referring to was associate members, because you spoke about non-executive members, directors, sorry. The co-ops won't all have associate members. It is up to the co-op to decide, do they want that? In case they decide they want it, they must include it in their constitution. It does not mean an associate member will be a director. However, if a co-op decides they will allow them to be directors, they will be called non-executive. All that means is they cannot vote at any of the meetings of a co-op, including the directors' meetings. If you're a non-executive director, you will be joining the meetings of the directors, obviously, the board of directors, and you can speak at it, but you can't vote, you can't take decisions, in other words. That person, perhaps a co-op decide they want a person who is an associate member who will join their board meetings, and the person have knowledge about something or another, but they're not interested in being a co-op member, and they just come to the board meetings and advise the co-op. So that's the benefit they bring to the cooperative. But yes, the board of directors can consist of people like secretary and general members and one person who's the chairperson of a cooperative. I hope that answers the question. Can we just get an indication? In case it did not, then I think we must refer to the co-ops unit, and that we just hear what you would want to know further.
Okay, yeah, it actually does answer a bit. Just maybe on the board of directors. So you've mentioned the chairperson. So board of directors. So does that mean the chairperson must be a director as well, registered on the co-op registrations, or a chairperson can just chair the meeting if they have a meeting, but it doesn't mean necessarily he or he has to be a director of the co-op.
No, I think the chairperson must be one of the directors. So that person chairs the meetings, and if he or she can't be there, then for the specific meeting, the person can't be there. Someone else within the board can then be acting as chairperson, but there's only one chairperson, and yes, I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does. So meaning the vice chairperson should be also a director, if I may ask.
Yes, obviously the vice chairperson must also be a director.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm answered. Thank you so much.
Lady, do you want to add something?
Hello, no, Elma has answered everything.
Okay, we go to Liz. Can you ask your question, please?
Thank you. Thank you.
Liz, there is an echo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear now.
Okay, I'm sorry about the noise in the background. The fees, and thank you for the clarity on the different levels, you know, like the apex and the primary and so forth, and the fees that each level has to pay. Now, I just want to first know, is a co-op the same as a closed corporation?
No, it's not at all. You can't register any new closed corporations. The only closed corporations are those that were registered. I don't know the date when that act changed, but perhaps Lucinda or somebody can help us there. But that is something, it's a different form of business. It works different. And the ones which was registered at a certain date can continue unless they want to convert to companies. But it's not the same thing at all. So one must understand a CC, if I may just add, like a company, the purpose of it is to, make a profit. Whereas with a co-op, that's sort of almost like a secondary goal, or not even a goal. If it happens, it's good because then they've got extra money and they can use it for reserves, as well as pay bonuses to the members at the end of the financial year. However, the goal of a co-op is to provide a service to its members. Whether it is to employ them, give them employment when it's a workers' co-op, or some or other how sell a product they manufacture or something like that. But that's a goal of a co-op. Lucinda, I don't know, just for interest, perhaps you can just respond and tell us when the CC Act changed and that no one can from that date register any new CCs.
That was 2011, Elma. But Lucinda already answered on the chat. But Lucinda, you can come in and just clarify.
Yes, thanks, Lisbon. Alma, just to confirm, with the incorporation of the New Companies Act, that was when the CC Act was amended at the same time, and that was where new registration of any CCs was stopped, 1 May 2011. So existing closed corporations can still continue to exist, but no new CCs can be registered as from the 1st of May 2011.
Okay, thank you for that. But then now there's these fees. The person who presented on fees of if you're making less than $1 million, your primary and your fees like 50 rands. And if you default, the penalty is 100 rands. What happens to like co-ops that have been there, or closed corporation or PTY limited with IPC registered, but you have been charged 150 for penalty, and you don't even make 10,000 a year, and now you're sitting with maybe 6 months penalties. You had money in your virtual account, and the money was maybe moved somewhere. You expect to be paying your annual fees, and now you're sitting with 1,800 rands of penalties of 150. You don't even make 10,000 a year.
Lucinda, please come back and clarify that it is a must to pay the annual return.
I think I've already answered that question, Liz. Remember, it does not matter what your whether you are trading, even if you are dormant or whatever the amount is that you make, every entity, corporate entity, must pay and file annual returns. Annual returns is once a year you have to submit and pay the annual returns. If your turnover, the fees that are described in the presentation, is a certain amount, then that is the annual returns that you have to pay. If you do not pay that 50 Rand that you were supposed to, even if you made 1,000 Rand that year, you still need to pay that annual return for the co-op or any other corporate entity to remain active. Otherwise, penalties will incur. and those penalties are just going to be increased.
So
that is legislatively specified. The CIPC or any other body cannot write off any penalty fees or any annual returns. That is legislatively administrative requirements that need to be complied with.
Thank you. But my point now is that instead of 50 rands, it shows 100 rands and the penalty is 150. And we're not an apex.
Liz, I think you're confusing the two. The annual return for cooperatives, they've not yet started. Simon, you can clarify that.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yes, you are right. I could be confusing because
you are confusing
ETY and the closed corporation.
There's different acts. Each one have their own fees for services, and they differ. The provisions in the act. And the Co-ops Act, we're talking about the co-ops one. We're not talking CCs or companies.
Okay.
So their fees are their fees, but for co-ops, there's new fees, and they haven't paid up to now, and they're not paying as yet. It's a phase that will be implemented at a later stage.
Oh no, thank you. That's clear. Thank you very much.
And the only thing that you need to do, Liz, is to submit the financial statement every 6 months. So I'm going to move now to Lishendlofu.
Yes, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. Two things. One, I've just recently registered a cooperative. In fact, I would say perhaps 2 weeks ago. There was no acknowledgement of some sort that CIPC has received the my application. And secondly, not only that, when there's a on your website, it tells you where you would go in order to follow up after 3 days. I've been trying to do that, but I'm getting absolutely nothing. And secondly, my second question is, do you guys provide a workshop on how to perhaps choose, because you've got your, yes, primaries quite clearly, but you've got your marketing, you've got your, or any other different cooperatives that are there, and perhaps for the products that you would want, or for the services that you want to provide to the market, especially given that there are different businesses that want to come. Do you guys perhaps have a workshop, or can you perhaps send anyone that perhaps could maybe share light, so that we don't do certain things wrong? Because now that I'm hearing, you could tell that cooperative is a legal entity. It's the room for errors, and it's very minimal. And my fear is that we could get ourselves into a situation where we don't really know how certain things done, and obviously in the long run that might also come and hurt us. So is there a possibility that perhaps PC could perhaps do a workshop on the different kinds of cooperatives that are there, being a marketing, being a primary, being whatever cooperatives that is out there, so that it will also suit whatever that you're trying to do on the market? Those were my 2 questions. Thank you so much.
Lisbon, if I may jump in there to say that you get primary, you get secondary, you get tertiary, and you get the national apex. Let's say, for instance, the person was referring to a marketing co-op. You don't get a marketing co-op that doesn't fall within one of those categories. So whether you're marketing or workers, most of them are primary, but as I say, it's not like you have a separate. You can do marketing, and that can be what your co-op is for, but you will still, when you register for usually a primary, but otherwise, if there's reasons why you need to register for a secondary or tertiary, then you will still fall within one of those categories. So I think there's a slight confusion as far as that is concerned.
The last.
Okay, before perhaps we move on. Now, this one was, and the confusion I think is still there. I've registered a primary marketing cooperative agricultural, but I'm not even sure how it's going to work. I thought I've read, I thought I've researched, but you see what you're saying to me now. It might be different to what to my understanding, and I must say the information with regards to how these different cooperatives work, it's not adequate. It's there, but it's not adequate. Perhaps one would, as I said, is there possibility that you guys perhaps can do workshop, or perhaps even invite perhaps a CIPC member to our meeting? It could be either virtually, and maybe perhaps address us. Perhaps you chose this. These are the options that you need to take. These are the legal requirements you need to fulfill. These are the things that you need to do. These are the options you will need to do. Because currently we've read and we followed. It's like you're driving a plane and it's in the air and you're fixing it while it's while you fly. But in actual fact, you don't even know if you're doing properly or not. So is there a possibility perhaps of a workshop, or maybe line, or for someone that you'll be able to tell you, to guide you, perhaps to coach you on, so that you can do things right? And then perhaps the second question, obviously, is the one that I have asked, if you guys would, any acknowledgement of the registration that one has said. Thank you so much.
Lisbon, I think we must give Letty a chance to tell us about the acknowledgement of an application. We've heard your request and we will look into the possibility of such a webinar. Yes, I don't think we really have the time to do individual matters. The other place you can contact, I think also, is the Department of Small Business. Because they are responsible for development of cooperatives. You can also try your CEDA. They might also be able to assist you with information. But we will look into the possibility of such a webinar. And Letty, I think you can perhaps just help us with that question on the acknowledgement.
Before Letty answer, I just wanted to clarify that we don't deal with the operations of cooperatives or any businesses. So we cannot advise you on which one you have to choose. Actually, we're doing with the registration and the maintaining of the businesses. So you have to consult the Department of Small Business or CEDA, as Elma already alluded. So Letty, please continue.
Okay. Regarding the lodgement of cooperative, we have the cooperative online email that has the auto reply. However, yes, there's a delay in the registration since the lockdown, as we are trying to maintain the lockdown regulations and the social distancing. For me to be able to help you now, can I have your email address that you use to lodge and your customer code? Then I'll make a follow-up and come back to you. Can I have your email address?
He will send to you. And now let me move to someone. They already wrote your email address on the chat. Yes.
All right, they can send it. All right, thank you.
Lisbon, sorry, may I just jump in here? I'm just quickly seeing two questions here that I might be able to answer here. One person was asking whether there can be more than 5 board members of directors. And yes, you determine that in your constitution. What is your maximum? However, there can't be less than 3 members to form a board. And then there was a question where the person said, they're slightly confused here, do co-op submit annual returns to CIPC currently? This is because the person says they're confused because we're talking about fees and penalties, etc. Okay, the annual return or annual submission, you can call it as well, is not just fees, it's documents. And yes, you must submit the documents that the Act requires to a co-op division. However, the fees and the penalties is not yet implemented. So that section is not implemented, but you are required to submit the documents and the reports that I have discussed during the presentation. Thanks, Lisbon.
Thank you, Elma. Limbe Munyaka. Letty, do you want to come back or something?
Hello.
Hello, Letty.
You said I want to?
No, I thought you wanted to add something, but
no.
Okay.
I'll wait for the emails queries,
The
then I'll answer that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Munyaka. Munyaka, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Your mic is still muted. Seems like the person is still struggling. Tinzwalo, I saw your hand was up. Did you want to say something?
No, Lisbon, it's fine. I wanted to find out about the tracking of the company, the co-op registration. Will it also be done online, or they should be the email sending, and also the service turnaround for the new registration?
Okay. Your
Did you hear
Marcus
my
is
question?
making noise.
I need
Yeah,
to-
Marcus is making noise at the background.
Yes,
But I think Letty had you.
Okay.
Letty, did you get the question?
Hello.
Yes, it's Letty.
I didn't get the question.
Tinzwalo, please switch off your radio and ask the question.
All right, it's fine. Sorry about that. I'm asking regarding the tracking the process of the co-op registration. Will it also be done on the new e-service registration portal, and also the service turnaround? Will it still change, or maybe there's still gonna be the same service turnaround for the current co-op registrations?
Currently, we have two processes. We are still running the normal manual process, and we have introduced the online registration. So for queries, we use QRS, which is the query resolution system, which is available on our website, as already stated in the presentation. Obviously, the turnaround time of the manual process and the online cannot be the same. It will differ. But our manual process, yes, we have a delay in the registration.
So
are you answered?
My understanding, Lady, is that you will publish the new service turnaround time.
Yeah, regarding the online registration.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm covered.
And notice 46 is already issued regarding the online registration guideline. It was published last week.
Okay, thank you, Lady. There's no questions at the moment, the hands, but I saw there's a lot of questions in the chat. So Elma, can you go through them?
Okay, I'm not sure where I must start. But Lisbon, perhaps you can see, then you can read some of them for me. I just want to ask somebody from the co-ops unit must just confirm. Somebody said here that director, the numbers can only be between 3 and 7. Now I know about the 3, but is there a limit such as 7? If Letty or Mabusi or Aubrey, someone can just confirm for us, is that correct? Letty?
I was expecting Mabusa to answer. There's no limit with the maximum.
Okay, directors, eh? No limit.
Yes, the minimum is from 3, but there's no limit for the maximum. The members can amend the constitution according to their requirement.
Okay, where the person probably got it from, I don't know the new models, but the old models, I think added those numbers at one stage, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure. But, okay, so there's not a limit to the number of directors.
Maximum, yes.
Yes. Then there's a question, is the online registration effective? Yes, it's already effective. You can start using it. You must just be very sure you go to online transacting, and then there's going to be 2 e-services. The first one says e-services, the second one says new e-services. You must go to new e-services and then do both your name reservation as well as your co-op registration there. And there's a question, can one person be a member of 2 different co-ops? Yes, you can. I think it's just important that the people of the co-ops do different things. Yes, so you can be, if you're working in one co-op and you want to go and join another co-op to sell something like, let's say you make jewelry and you can sell it in another co-op. In other words, the 2 activities that have nothing to do with one another, you can do it. Letty's email has been sent a few times, so please just scroll up in the chats, because I see a few people keep on asking what is her email address. And then there was something about the payment with a bank card where somebody asked whether they can also do a deposit on the system. And sorry, in the bank, and then add it to the system. You cannot. The new way of doing it is with your bank card, and yeah, you don't have a choice to use like your customer code before, where you did it and use your customer code as a reference. Sorry, Liz, do you see more for Letty? Do you have something?
Yeah, I just want to add one on what you were saying regarding the online registration. Unfortunately, you cannot use the tracking number of the already reserved name on old new services. On old new e-services, when you go to online registration, you are going to do everything there, starting from the name reservation, then proceed to cooperative registration. If you have already the name that is already reserved, you cannot use it on the online registration. You rather consider proceeding with the manual process. Thank you.
Letty, there is a question again. Can a person and the company be counted as 2 members in one primary cooperative?
The combination cater for that, according to section 6 of the amended act. Combination of natural person and the juristic. Juristic, we are referring to in business company or CC or a what you call a trust.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are left with 3 minutes for question and answers. I have Edith. Please ask your question.
My question is, if you have a national primary and a national secondary cooperative, can we make a constitution that can be used for all our members, even when others join us? So we would like to have a constitution that is suitable for our primary and our secondary cooperative. Do you understand my question? And then on a cooperative registration, can we use a trust and a private company to open a cooperative? Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, I think that was what Letty was saying. You need one of the options for primary co-op is 2 juristic, and that can be a company and a trust. You can also use a CC. And then I saw somebody ask for my email. What I want to ask, instead of sending me personally email, please send email to education@cipc.co.za, that if I'm not available to answer, that one of my colleagues in our unit can answer the question.
I also note that there's a question about shares. How do you allocate it among members? It's up to the co-op to decide how they're going to work with that. In most of the very small co-ops, all the members have the same number of shares, and the shares is your capital of the cooperative. And I think one must just look at the other things that the Constitution might state about issuing of shares, because you will have to, for all the shares, always give each member a certificate, a share certificate to prove they have shares. And that is not something you get from CIPC. That is something you draft yourself. If you don't know how, you can Google it on internet, and you will find examples, and then you can determine what your share certificate should look like.
Cecilia, did you get the first part of the question about the Constitution?
Can I ask Mabusa to answer that, please?
Excuse me. Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. What is the question about? Letty, please remind me.
Mabusa, what I'm asking is if we have a national primary and a national secondary cooperative, okay, can we, as the cooperative, make constitutions that other cooperatives that will be joining us or forming new cooperatives that will come under our cooperatives, can we make our own model constitution that will be used by all our cooperatives?
Yes, you can have your own model constitutions, but just make sure that those constitutions are in compliance with the minimum requirements for all cooperatives as provided for in the Act, and that they also comply with the constitution of the land. But remember, a secondary cooperative it's a juristic person on its own, and it's got one model constitution that it must comply with, and a primary will have a different constitution that is for that primary cooperative. Is that clear?
And then if another primary joins the first primary, can that primary use the same constitution model?
Remember, if it yes, as a juristic person, it can join, but it will find that primary cooperative with its own model constitution. Then it must basically abide by it. But you must be careful that it's because if you have two primary cooperatives, you need to differentiate. Is it if it's a member, then it is fine. It must comply with the constitution of the original cooperative. But if it's two different primary cooperatives that want to come together to form a secondary, then it must comply with the secondary cooperative requirements.
Thank you, Mabusa. Will we be getting this on some kind of a voice recording, or can a Google Dropbox be opened that we can access it? Because I would like to listen to Mabusa's answer again. Thank you, colleagues, for your time. Thank you very much for this initiative. I think cooperatives need it, and personally, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm no longer taking other questions. And yes, the webinar will be available on the website. On the homepage, there is the option or the icon for webinars. You will be able to find the presentations of the previous webinars and the podcast. Elma, you may close. I hear that you want to say something.
Yeah, if I can quickly jump in there about the webinars. It takes a while before we get it. So don't expect it to be on the website tomorrow. It's going to take time, but check after a while. And as Lisbon says, the webinar recording will be loaded as well as the presentations.
And if I may also just, it's probably repeating what Mabusi said, just in different words, about the question of primary co-ops and secondary, etc., with their constitutions. Every co-op have a constitution, and all their members must comply to the same constitution. But let's say secondary co-op gets started by 2 or more primaries. If another primary wants to join, it must obviously first be registered. And there's a difference between a primary and a secondary and a tertiary, etc. So therefore, the models that is available on the website is slightly different from one another, because there's certain provisions in the Act that is different for the different co-ops. However, it's in most instances there's a lot of similarity there. And I think if at all possible, you can change a model and register with your own wording in the model. However, just a warning, your constitution must always comply to all the requirements of the Act. The models already do that. And I know from many years ago, when I was a while in the co-ops unit, we seldom got people not using models, but the problem was people often don't include all the information they have to, or they include things that's not allowed in terms of the Act. So if possible, stick to the model, but if you find you must do changes, you can do it and submit your own constitution.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of CIPC, I would like to thank the cooperatives team, the legal team, Lucinda, and all the staff from CIPC and everyone who joined our webinar today. It was very much appreciated. Until we meet again, please take care. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.